Hello, dreamers, and welcome to Dreaming Isle. I'm here to guide you into a calm and magical place tonight. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. It helps bring more dreamers to our little corner of the stars. And if you'd like, share in the comments, what's the world outside your window like right now? Quiet night? Rainy? City lights? Now, find your cozy spot. Let go of the day and let the story begin. The Moonwell of Kirael. Part 1. A Voice Beneath the Water. The stars never blinked above Kirael. They shimmered in place like they were painted onto the sky, bright and still and perfectly quiet. Night in this world was not the absence of light, but the presence of softness, a cool blue that wrapped itself around the trees, the stones, and the lakes like a protective lullaby. In the center of it all was a girl named Aera. She stood on the edge of a smooth silver lake, her feet bare, her eyes half lost in the shimmer of the water. Her reflection moved slowly beneath her, not quite matching her real movements, as if it were dreaming a little behind her. Aera was quiet. She always had been, not because she had nothing to say, but because she had always been a listener. Her village, long behind her now, had once called her moon-hearted, not in mockery, but in mystery. She listened more to the wind than to people, more to dreams than to instructions. She had never belonged entirely to one place, and now she belonged nowhere at all. Not since she had left. She wasn't running away. She wasn't sure she was even searching, though that's what people assumed when they saw someone walking alone with a pack and no questions. But something had tugged at her, something old, something quiet, and it had led her here, to this lake, this world, this hour. She knelt at the edge and placed her hand gently against the surface of the water. It did not ripple. It did not shift. It simply welcomed her. And then she heard it again, the reason she had come. A voice, soft, distant, from deep beneath the water. Aera. No demand, no command, just her name, spoken like a memory. She didn't answer, not yet. Instead, she reached into her satchel and drew out a small glowing stone, her wayfinder. It had been passed down in her family for generations, given to wanderers, to travelers, to those who felt the pull of places not yet mapped. It had glowed faintly since she crossed into this land. Now it pulsed in her palm, a gentle light, slow and steady, like a heartbeat at rest. The voice spoke again. Do you remember the shape of silence? Aera closed her eyes. She did. Not the kind of silence that falls between arguments or inside empty rooms, but the silence that lives within things. The silence in the snow before the first footprint. The silence between waves when the ocean seems to hold its breath. The silence of an unopened book or a promise not yet spoken. She opened her eyes and stood. The lake ahead stretched far, but there was a path, a narrow line of smooth black stones that cut across the water, just beneath the surface. It hadn't been there before, but it was there now. She stepped forward, and the stones did not sink. The water shimmered gently around her feet. She didn't know where the path led, but she knew she had to follow it. Not out of duty, but out of knowing. And far beneath the water, the voice waited. Part 2. The Stone Path and the Mirrorfish. Aera walked carefully. The stones beneath the water were smooth and wide, placed with too much intention to be natural, yet worn in that ancient way that made them feel like they had always been part of the lake. They were just barely submerged, like they were shy of the air. Each step sent small ripples curling out in perfect circles. Not one passed her knees. The water remained calm, like it knew her, like it welcomed her. The lake stretched in every direction. No shore in sight, no birds, no wind. The sky above remained in eternal twilight, deep indigo with a faint silver haze. It wasn't dark, not really. It was a kind of still light, the kind that hangs just before sleep. Aera did not hurry. She had long ago stopped measuring things in distance. Instead, she measured in breaths, in heartbeats, in the way a place made her feel. And here, she felt known. She didn't know what waited at the end of the path, or if there was one, but she didn't need to. The way forward was quiet and alive, and that was enough. Then she noticed them, in the water beside her. Just beneath the surface, things began to move. Shapes. Fish. But not like any she'd ever seen. They shimmered like light on glass, their scales mirrored and ever shifting. They swam slowly, not in schools, but in spirals, in patterns like calligraphy written by water. As she walked, they followed, not beneath her, but beside her, as if guiding or witnessing. One swam closer and paused, floating just beneath the surface beside her ankle. Its body was round, its fins long and ribbon-like, trailing behind it like threads of smoke. But what caught her was its face, or what passed for one. It did not have eyes. It had a reflection, her reflection. Not exactly as she was, but as she had been, younger. Her face lit with laughter she couldn't remember the source of. A scarf she hadn't worn in years. A bruise on her knee from a fall she'd forgotten. The fish blinked or shimmered, and the image changed. Now it showed her not as a child, but as someone else entirely. Older, stronger, her hair streaked with silver, her shoulders square. She wore a long coat and a necklace that glowed with blue light. And then it changed again. Now she was cloaked, hooded, holding someone's hand, someone small. The fish moved on. More fish passed, each offering glimpses. Some were memories she knew, some were not. Possibilities, perhaps. Dreams, might-have-beens. The path continued, unbothered by the dance beside it. She felt neither fear nor confusion, only a kind of deep, gentle awe. The lake was not only a place, it was a mirror, a memory, a door, and something in it was helping her remember, not just who she had been, but who she still might become. She walked on. The fish glided silently around her, and the stars above stayed perfectly still. Part 3. The Floating Grove. The path finally came to an end, not at a shore, but at a small island, hovering inches above the lake. It didn't float like a boat or a lily pad. It floated like a dream, weightless and still, as though it had been plucked from the earth and told to rest here, just above the surface. Aera stepped off the last stone and onto soft grass. It didn't sink under her weight. It didn't tremble or resist. It simply accepted her. The island was round, no more than 30 paces across, and covered in pale green moss and tiny blossoms that shimmered silver under the constant twilight. There were no trees, only a ring of glowing reeds that hummed faintly, like wind chimes caught in memory. At the very center of the island stood a circle of stones, 5 in total, evenly spaced, low and worn. They were etched with spirals and shapes that reminded Aera of wind trails, ripples, and the inner swirl of shells. She walked toward them and sat. The moment she did, the sound changed. The humming of the reeds deepened. The air grew cooler, not cold, but more aware of itself. And then the island began to drift, not fast, not aimlessly, just forward. Aera blinked, looking around. The lake had no current, no wind to push this island, and yet it moved. It carried her, slowly and surely, across the mirrored water, leaving no trail behind. She didn't stand. She didn't panic. She simply watched as the lake passed around her, as the mirrored fish fell away, replaced by stillness and a new, deeper quiet. The reeds continued to hum, and then the island slowed. It came to a stop at the base of a small tree that hadn't been there before. It grew out of the water itself, roots not touching soil, its bark pale and smooth like driftwood, its leaves made of soft white feathers. It rustled without wind, and at its base, resting just above the surface of the lake, was a bowl of light. Not a bowl holding light, but a bowl made of it. A hollow, glowing curve that pulsed faintly with a silver hue. Aera stood, drawn to it. She reached out and touched its edge. There was no heat. Instead, an image filled her mind. A hallway of lanterns. A slow river flowing backward. A child, not her but somehow within her, standing at the edge of cliff, holding a letter she never sent. The images didn't flash. They didn't overwhelm. They flowed gently, one into the next, like scenes from a half-remembered dream just before waking. And with them, the voice returned. The Moonwell remembers the things we forget, but it does not keep them. It only waits. Aera closed her eyes. She didn't speak, not aloud. But inside she whispered, "I want to remember." The tree's feathers rustled and one broke loose, drifting gently down to the surface of the lake, where it vanished. The bowl of light dimmed, then pulsed once more, this time with a strand of gold weaving into its silver glow. Aera turned. Part 4. The Silver Bridge. The floating island carried Aera for what felt like hours. Though no sun moved, and no stars changed. Time here did not behave. It flowed like the lake, slow, circular, soft. Aera sat in the center of the mossy grove, listening to the reeds hum and watching the water shimmer. She no longer wondered where the island was taking her. That question felt small now, childish. The journey was the place, the movement, the answer. And then, without sound or warning, the island came to a stop. Aera stood slowly. Before her rose a bridge, arching gently out of the lake and stretching forward into a curtain of soft mist. It was made of polished stone the color of moonlight, not quite silver, not quite white. It shimmered faintly, not from any source of light, but from within itself, like it remembered the stars even when none shone. The reeds behind her gave one final hum and fell silent. Aera stepped forward. The bridge was warm under her feet. Each step echoed softly, but not as sound, more like memory, a feeling, like somewhere someone had walked this way before and left the echo for her to find. As she walked, the mist around her thickened, but it wasn't cold. It wrapped her like a shawl, soft and familiar, not hiding the world, but slowing it, blurring the edges, asking her to stop seeing with her eyes and instead to feel. And so she did. She walked slowly, evenly, letting each step fall where it would. Her thoughts quieted, her questions faded. The hum of the reeds still echoed in her chest. Halfway across the bridge, she saw them. Figures, not blocking her path, just waiting. They stood off to the sides, made of mist and memory. One was tall and wore robes that drifted like smoke. One knelt, drawing something in the air with glowing hands. One looked almost exactly like Aera, except older, wiser. Her hair was streaked with silver, and her eyes held the calm of oceans. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Their presence was the message. You've always been many things. You still are. Keep walking. Aera nodded, not to them, but to herself, and she stepped through them. They dissolved, not in alarm, but in peace, like they had only been waiting to be acknowledged. The mist began to thin, and ahead, at the far end of the bridge, something shimmered. A wide circular platform made of white stone, with something glowing at its center. Aera walked the final steps, and the bridge fell away behind her. She had arrived. Part 5. The Circle of Remembering. The stone platform was perfectly round, like it had been shaped by moonlight and memory instead of tools. The surface beneath Aera's feet was smooth but warm, almost like polished bone left to soak in sun, though no sun had touched this place. At the center of the circle, there stood a basin. It was wide, shallow, and filled with something that wasn't quite water. It shimmered with a liquid silver light, moving even when no wind stirred. Its surface was perfectly flat, but as Aera drew closer, ripples began to appear, slow and even, radiating outward from its heart like the beating of something alive. This was no ordinary well. This was the Moonwell. She stepped toward it and knelt. The stone didn't chill her skin. It welcomed her, like everything in Kirael, not passive, but inviting, as though it had been waiting for her. as though it had always known she would come. The voice returned, but it wasn't a whisper now. It was all around her. Gentle, yes, but vast. The way the sea speaks when you're beneath it. The way a story sounds when told for the 1000th time. Aera. The world forgets slowly, bit by bit, but dreams know how to wait. The surface of the Moonwell shimmered, and then it showed her everything. First, she saw a forest, not Kirael, but one from her childhood, a place where she used to hide between branches, listening for birds that never sang, and sketching the trees like each had a secret name. She saw herself younger, alone, yes, but content. That was when she had found the stone, the wayfinder, buried under an old tree's roots. It had glowed then, too. Then the vision changed. She saw people she had met once and forgotten. A woman who told her stories of cloud cities. A man who sang songs to river stones. A boy who had given her half a map and said, "You'll know where it leads when the stars stop moving." Then she saw something deeper, something she hadn't expected. She saw herself, standing in this very place, the Moonwell before her, but not now, in the future. Her face was calm, her hands were open. The basin before her glowed with threads of gold, violet and silver, swirling like galaxies in a bowl. She was no longer seeking, she was remembering. And then the image faded. The water stilled. Aera leaned forward. She spoke aloud, softly. "What is this place, really?" The answer came like a heartbeat. It is the shape of remembering. It is the place between things. You have not been lost, Aera. You have only been waiting for yourself to return. She lowered her head. For the first time in many days, maybe years, she felt a warmth behind her eyes. Not sorrow, not fear, just the quiet ache of being seen. She reached into her satchel and pulled out the wayfinder. Its glow now pulsed in time at the well. She placed it gently into the basin. The light swirled. Threads of color curled around the stone, silver, then violet, then gold. And then the Moonwell sang. Not with music, not with voice, but with something older. A hum, a resonance, a knowing. Aera closed her eyes and let it fill her. When she opened them, the world had changed. Or perhaps she had. Part 6. The Sleepless City. When the light from the Moonwell faded, Aera stood alone once more. But the platform beneath her feet was no longer just stone. It had transformed. Runes now glowed faintly at the edges, pulsing with a rhythm like breath. The basin had vanished. The feathers from the tree, the hum of the reeds, all gone. Only the sky remained unchanged, still hung in perfect twilight. Aera turned. A new path stretched before her, this time not made of stones or bridges, but of glow glass. Smooth, translucent panels hovered above the water, barely a handspan apart, suspended by nothing but light. Beyond the path, rising faintly in the distance, were towers, not sharp like castles, nor gleaming like temples, but curved and soft, like giant seashells that had drifted into place and decided to stay. They shimmered with pale light, and from between them came flickers of soft motion, as if things moved behind their walls, unseen but not unwelcoming. The path led forward, and Aera followed. As she walked, the panels of glass beneath her feet lit up one by one, then faded as she passed. A soft trail of light marked her steps behind her, like a memory the world was choosing to keep, just for a little while. When she reached the edge of the city, a breeze met her. It was the first real wind she had felt in Kirael. Not cold, not forceful, just real. And it carried with it a sound, faint, musical, as if someone far off was playing an instrument made of air and light. Aera stepped between the first two towers and entered the sleepless city. There were no guards, no gates, no roads. The buildings did not form streets in the usual way. They floated slightly above the lake's surface, connected by narrow walkways of silver thread. Light streamed between them like moonbeams woven into bridges. And above them all, drifting in slow circles, were lanterns. Hundreds of them. Some small, some wide, some dim, some bright. Each moved in its own rhythm, but together they pulsed like stars in deep space. The city was alive, not in a loud, bustling way, but in the way trees are alive, oceans, memory. She wandered, and as she moved, the city began to respond. Shapes gathered in her periphery, not people, but echoes of them. Mist forms that flickered into being beside doorways or leaned against glowing railings. Some hummed quietly, as though continuing conversations long paused. Some wept without sadness. Some simply watched her pass. They did not speak, but she felt them welcome her. One figure, a woman tall and hooded in blue, paused as Aera passed. She didn't turn her head, but raised her hand. In her palm was a small object, a spinning ring glowing faintly with symbols. Aera reached for it, but the woman closed her fingers around it, then opened her hand again. The ring was gone. But a new sensation bloomed in Aera's chest. A memory not quite hers. A soft kiss placed on a forehead before sleep. A promise whispered into water. A lullaby sung with no words. She pressed a hand to her heart. The city wasn't made of buildings. It was made of kept things, unspoken promises, abandoned lullabies, lost moments too soft for the waking world. And she had found her way here not by map, but by remembering how to feel them again. The path now led upward to the highest tower. She began to climb. Part 7. The Room of Still Light. The path to the highest tower wasn't made of stairs or stones. It was a ribbon of light. Aera stepped onto it without hesitation. The moment her foot touched the path, it lifted, not with speed, not with sound, but with grace. She floated gently upward, the city of echoes falling away below her like a dream already beginning to soften. The air here was cooler, thinner, as though it was made not entirely of air anymore, but of memory or possibility. She passed windows carved from light, balconies that floated with no walls, lanterns the size of her hands drifting slowly in orbit like moons, and all around her, silence. Not empty silence, sacred silence, the kind that lives inside a held breath, the kind that waits not to be broken but to be understood. And then she arrived. The ribbon placed her at the threshold of a round room, its entrance open and warm. The space inside was simple, quiet. A single circular chamber with high, arching walls of glowing stone and a domed ceiling that looked like the night sky, but subtly moving, slowly shifting like waves beneath stars. At the center of the room stood a chair, not a throne, not a pedestal, just a simple, curved seat of wood and woven silver thread. Facing nothing, waiting for no one. Aera stepped inside, and she felt it. The hum, the resonance. Not outside her, within. This room wasn't where answers were given. It was where remembering happened. She walked to the center and sat. The moment she did, the light in the walls shifted. It grew softer, golden at the edges, pale at the core. And images began to form in the space around her. Not on walls, but in the air. Not memories this time. Wishes. A garden she had never seen but once imagined. A friend she had drawn in a notebook at 12 but never met. A letter she had started to write and never finished, now floating in the air, unfolding itself, line by line. These weren't things she had done. They were things she had longed for. The room showed them all, without judgment, without commentary. And then the voice returned, not above, not around, but inside her chest. You've wandered long, Aera. You've carried so much. But now you may rest. Not forever, just for a while. The Moonwell has remembered with you. That is enough. Tears came, soft and unexpected. Not sad ones, not even joyful, just release. She leaned back in the chair, closed her eyes, and in the still light of the tower, she allowed herself to let go. Not of herself, not of the past, but of the weight she had mistaken for identity, and for the first time in what felt like many lifetimes, she simply was. Part 8. The Lantern's Return. Aera sat in the quiet, feeling the pulse of light around her. There was no sound, no music, no voice now, just the stillness. It wasn't empty, it was complete. She didn't know how long she rested there in the room of still light. Time in Kirael had always been soft, like a tide, and she no longer felt the need to measure it. Her body did not ache, her mind did not press forward. She had let go, and the world had caught her. And then, without fanfare, a lantern appeared beside her. It hovered quietly in the air, small, round, made of soft blue glass, glowing with a gentle light. Aera reached for it. The moment her fingers brushed its surface, she felt the warmth of her own story inside. The mirrored fish, the floating island, the basin of silver light, the ring of soft echoes in the sleepless city. They weren't just memories, they were gifts. The lantern pulsed once, and she knew it was time to return. The journey back was quiet. No ribbons of light, no floating bridges, just a soft path unfolding before her, step by step, as if the world had memorized her rhythm and was walking beside her now, not ahead. The sleepless city nodded in her direction as she passed, not with heads or hands, but with light, a shimmer in a window, a faint hum from a tower, a new lantern drifting into orbit. The water welcomed her. The mirrored fish returned. They didn't show her who she had been, or who she might be. They showed her nothing at all, and that in itself was comfort. She no longer needed visions to know her path. When she reached the place where it all began, the edge of the silver lake, the world greeted her not as a visitor, but as something familiar, like a note returning to the chord it was born from. She stood at the edge. The lantern in her hand floated upward, not out of reach, but out of need. It joined the stars above, finding its own gentle orbit. It would be there for someone else someday. A traveler, a seeker, someone who had forgotten that they were never truly lost. Aera smiled softly. She turned from the water, from the lake, from the sky that never blinked, and began walking, not away, just forward, carrying nothing but her breath, her calm, and the deep remembering that now lived in her bones. So if ever you feel the pull of a place you've never been, if your dreams begin to echo with things you don't yet understand, don't be afraid. The path is not a trap. It's a welcome. The Moonwell is still there, waiting, and it remembers you, always.